Okay, so today's screencast is looking at types of data within research methods. Okay, so today we're going to discuss the 4 types of quantitative data. So remember that quantitative stands for numbers, numerical data. Okay, and there are 4 different types of numerical data that we can collect. So we're going to go through each of those 4 now. Okay, so the first one is called nominal data. Okay, and nominal data is the most basic type of measurement where essentially we give numbers to categories. What this means is that the actual numbers do not mean anything in particular. They're just used as a way of categorizing data. So, for example, if we're looking at males and females, we might give all the males in the group a number 1 and all the females in the group a number 2. This doesn't mean that females are twice as good as males. The numbers mean nothing. They're just purely used as labels. Okay, so in this example here, I've conducted a questionnaire asking students what they think of the canteen. And as you can see over on the right, I've assigned 3 different answers, whether they think it's poor, good, or neither of the above. And then what I've done is coded those answers as a number 1, a number 2, or a number 3. So all those people that said poor get a number 1. So you can see here, Jim gave a number 1, Nicola gave a number 1, Emma and Raj all gave a number 1. Now, again, those numbers don't mean anything other than the fact that we've just coded them to numbers. So it does not mean that, for example, the neither category at 3 is 3 times better or bigger. It's just purely that we decided that way around. So these numbers are just categories. Okay, ordinal data is the second one. And ordinal data is when we rank data, or we've got ranking data. So a really easy way to look at this is to look at an example. So what I've got here is a group of subjects, and they've each taken 10 basketball shots in front of no crowd and then in front of a crowd. And rather than put their scores out of 10, what I've done is I've ranked the participants. So we can see that Jim was the first place participant. He scored the most, and then Derek was in second place, Sally was in 3rd place, Bob was in 4th place, and Anna was in 5th place. Now, this was what happens when they took in front of a crowd. However, what I've done is I've then ranked the players on how well they did in the crowd condition. So when we've got 2 columns where we're comparing ranking data, we have 2 ordinal columns. The next one is called interval data. Now, interval data is probably going to sound more along the lines of what you've thought about before when you've thought about numbers. So this is when we have equal distances between the values, and the numbers actually mean something. So, for example, if we have a number 3, it means it's better than a number 2, or it's a greater number than number 2. So, for example, we might have things like the Celsius scale. Okay, so we have 1 degree Celsius, and then we have 2 degrees Celsius, we have 3 degrees Celsius, and as the numbers go up, the temperature is going up. And this is very different to the ones that we've just looked at. What's also important with interval data is that we can have minus numbers. Okay, so we can even go as low as 0, and then we can go down to -1. So interval data is a bit like a ruler. The numbers move up with equal distance between each number, but we can go below 0. Okay, so this particular example, I've looked at sit and reach, and if you cast your mind back to the last time you did a sit and reach test, we can have positive numbers, we can also have negative numbers if we can't touch our toes. So we have negative numbers, which means it's interval, and the other reason it's interval is that each number represents the same distance. So the distance between 1 and 2 is the same distance between 4 and 5, because it's measured in centimetres. Okay, and the last one is ratio data. Now, ratio data is exactly the same as interval data. Again, we have equal distances between the numbers, so it's a bit like a ruler. But the key thing here is you can't have any number less than 0, so you're not allowed to have a minus number. So, this is the most commonly used type of data that we get, and you quite often see it with things like height, weight, and distance. Because, again, all of these numbers are equal, so height we measure in centimetres, and each centimetre is the same, goes up evenly, but we can't have a minus number for height. And the same applies for weight and distance. And if I go on to my example, I go back to the same basketball study I did earlier, okay, and you can again see that in this study, Jim here has scored 10 out of 10 in the no crowd condition and 9 out of 10 in the crowd condition. Again, this data here is ratio, because we can't have a negative score, we can't get a -1 score of number of baskets scored out of 10, and each shot is worth the same. Okay, so it goes up steadily in stages. So that's ratio data. Okay, that's it, that's the end. So as a quick recap, there are 4 types of quantitative data. Your job whenever you collect data is to identify which of those 4 you have, and that will help you with your analysis.